You ever have someone who keeps living in your head long after they've walked out of your life? Yeah, it feels like a shadow you can't outrun, a memory stitched into your heartbeat. But today, we're going to talk about how to walk away, not in anger, not in bitterness, but with clarity, strength, and a quiet kind of courage. Because letting go isn't a battle you win, it's a journey you take. You know, when people talk about letting go, they often make it sound like some clean, graceful exit, a quiet closing of a book, a soft fade out, a peaceful final chapter. But real life rarely offers that kind of symmetry. More often it feels like trying to walk away from a fire that you started by accident, your clothes still warm, the smoke still in your lungs, the glow still on your skin. And the truth is, when someone has mattered to you, when they've carved out a place inside you without even trying, you don't just turn off your memories like a light switch. You carry them, even when you don't want to, even when you think you shouldn't. But here's the part most people never talk about. The memory isn't the enemy. It's not the villain of your story, and it's not there to hurt you. It's just what's left. It's the echo of something that once made sense to your heart. And echoes aren't dangerous. They're just reminders that you felt something real. We live in a world that teaches us to fight pain, erase pain, outrun pain, as if forgetting someone is a kind of victory. So we delete photos, unfollow accounts, throw away gifts, and pretend we're fine. We treat memories like stains that need to be scrubbed out. But the more you try to erase them, the deeper they seem to sink in. You can't wrestle a memory into silence, and the harder you fight it, the louder it gets. There's this story about a woman who kept every letter her ex ever wrote, not because she wanted him back, not because she was clinging to the past, but because she understood something most people don't. Those letters represented a version of herself that once believed in love with her whole chest. She said, "I don't keep them to remember him. I keep them to remember who I was." That's the shift. When you stop seeing memories as chains and start seeing them as chapters, you free yourself, not from what happened, but from the resistance to what happened. Most of us get stuck because we believe remembering means we're still attached. We think if the memory still hurts, it means we're weak. But pain is just a sign that something mattered. You don't hurt because you failed. You hurt because you tried, because you felt, because you lived something that had weight. That's not weakness, that's evidence of a heart that hasn't hardened. And hearts aren't meant to be stone, they're meant to feel. Even after the moment has passed, I've met people who've spent years trying to forget someone. Years. And they always say the same thing, it's exhausting. That's because forgetting isn't natural. You don't forget by force. You forget by living, you forget by growing, you forget by becoming someone new, someone bigger, someone who doesn't fit into the person you were when those memories were made. The forgetting happens quietly, slowly, almost invisibly. One day you wake up and realize that the memory didn't disappear, it just stopped controlling you. So the first step, the real first step in walking away, is to stop treating your memory like an intruder. Let it sit with you for a while. Let it breathe. Let it settle. When you allow a memory to exist without fighting it, it loses its sharpness. It stops being a blade and becomes something softer. An old photograph, a sense of déjà vu, a bittersweet reminder that you once opened your heart. Think about it this way. If you had a scar on your arm, you wouldn't try to rub it off. You wouldn't get angry at it for being there. You'd accept that it's part of you now. It doesn't define you. It doesn't control you. But it tells a story about something you survived. Emotional memories work the same way. They are the scars of the heart. They're proof that you showed up to your own life. People often say, "I just want to forget them." But what if forgetting isn't the goal? What if the goal is simply to remember without falling apart, to look back without losing your balance? What if the measure of healing isn't erasing the memory, but being able to carry it without letting it shape every step you take? The memory isn't dangerous. The fear of it is. And strangely enough, when you stop fearing it, you start healing. You start realizing that the memory doesn't own you. You start recognizing the difference between remembering and longing, between honoring the past and living in it. And acceptance, real acceptance, isn't just saying it happened. It's saying it happened, and I'm still here. It's understanding that you're not walking away from the person. You're re-walking away from the power that memory once had over you. There's this quiet strength that comes from acceptance. a kind of peace that doesn't make a lot of noise but settles into your bones. It's the strength that says, I can carry this without letting it weigh me down. It's the strength that lets you breathe again. You don't have to forget someone to move on. That's one of the biggest myths out there. You just have to stop trying to rewrite the past. Let it be what it was. Let them be who they were. Let yourself be who you were. Then, let yourself become who you're meant to be next. Because memories don't block your path. They only block it when you keep trying to go backward. When you're facing forward, you realize they're just passengers in the back seat. Quiet, harmless, part of the story but not the driver anymore. And when you reach that point, when you stop battling the memory and start accepting it, you'll feel something shift. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but gently, like the first breath after a long underwater dive. You'll feel space inside you again. You'll feel light again. You'll feel movement again. That's the moment you begin to walk away. Not from the memory, but from the pain tied to it. And that right there is the beginning of freedom. You know, holding on to someone long after they've stepped out of your life isn't some strange flaw or failure. It's human. It's what happens when the heart doesn't move at the same pace as reality. People say, just let go, as if it's a switch you flip, like your emotions are a light bulb. But the truth is, we don't cling to people because we want to suffer. We hold on because there's something deeper happening beneath the surface, something emotional, something psychological, something rarely acknowledged. And until you understand that truth, moving on feels impossible. Most of the time, when we're stuck, we think we're holding on to the person, their smile, their voice, their presence, the way they made us feel alive or understood. But more often than not, it's not them. It's the version of ourselves we were around them. That version mattered. That version felt something meaningful. When they walked away, it wasn't just a person leaving. It was a piece of identity that suddenly felt missing. And so the mind keeps circling back, replaying moments, holding on not because you were weak, but because you're trying to find yourself again. Think about it. There are people you cared about who slipped out of your life and you moved on without much effort. But then there are others, the ones your mind won't let go of. And when you look closer, those aren't random. Those are the ones who touch something in you, something tender, something hopeful, something you probably didn't even know needed attention. A friend once told me about a breakup that haunted him for years. Not months, years. He said he didn't understand why he couldn't let go. They weren't even together that long. But during that short time, he felt seen in a way he hadn't since childhood. She made him feel safe in ways he forgot he needed. When the relationship ended, he didn't just miss her. He missed the sense of safety, the feeling of being known, the comfort of not having to pretend. He held on because she awakened something in him. And once awakened, it was impossible to ignore. That's the part people don't talk about. Sometimes the person you can't forget is actually the mirror you're terrified to lose. They reflected back a version of you that you loved, maybe more than you loved yourself. At the time, you might be holding on because that person represented a chapter of your life when you felt alive, or because you believed they understood you in a way no one else had. Maybe they made you feel chosen when you'd spent years feeling overlooked. Maybe they made you believe in possibility when you'd been living in disappointment. Maybe they felt like home at a moment when everything else felt like a war. Understanding why you're holding on isn't a sign of defeat, it's a sign of awareness. And awareness is the first real step toward freedom. Because once you can name the reason, you can start healing it at the source. If you're holding on because they made you feel safe, then your task isn't to forget them. It's to build your own safety. If you're holding on because they made you feel valued, then your path is learning to value yourself without needing someone else to validate it. If you're holding on because they represented hope, then maybe it's time to create a new kind of hope, one that doesn't rely on a single person. People often confuse attachment with love, but attachment doesn't always mean love. Sometimes it means unresolved needs. Sometimes it means unhealed wounds. Sometimes it means you attached a dream to a person, and when they left, the dream shattered. That kind of heartbreak isn't just emotional, it's existential. You're not grieving them, you're grieving the version of the future you thought you were walking into. There was another story I once heard about a woman who couldn't let go of her first serious partner. She tried everything, journaling, therapy, dating new people. Nothing worked. Then one day, during a conversation, she realized that what she missed most wasn't him. It was the sense of innocence she had back then, the belief that love was simple, the belief that people stayed. Once she recognized that, the grip loosened, because she wasn't trying to reclaim him anymore. She was grieving her own lost innocence. That realization brought her peace. When you understand the why behind your attachment, you can start seeing the situation with clearer eyes. You realize you're not trapped by the memory. You're trapped by the meaning you assign to it. And meaning can be rewritten, not erased, not denied, but reframed. You can carry the good without clinging to the pain. Sometimes you hold on because the relationship gave you a sense of identity. It told you who you were, or who you thought you could be. And losing that person created a kind of emotional vertigo. You didn't know who you were without them. That's a terrifying feeling, but it's also one of the most powerful invitations life can give you. Because when you lose an identity that was tied to someone else, you're given a chance to build one that's truly your own. And maybe that's the strange paradox of heartbreak. The thing you think is breaking you is actually shaping you. It's pushing you. It's asking you to grow in ways you never would have chosen on your own. Understanding why you're holding on doesn't magically make the pain disappear. It doesn't make the memories fade overnight. But it does something far more important. It removes the shame. It helps you see that you're not broken or foolish or weak for struggling. You're human. You're someone who felt deeply, someone who connected, someone whose heart opened wide enough to leave a mark. And the very thing that made you hold on, the depth of your feeling, is also the thing that will eventually set you free. Because once you understand the true reason behind your attachment, the person stops being a mystery, the pain stops being a fog, and your healing stops being a guess. You start reclaiming the parts of yourself you thought were gone. You start realizing that what you wanted from them is something you can cultivate within yourself. And slowly, gently, piece by piece, the grip loosens. Not because you force it to, but because understanding dissolves the need to hold on. And that's where real healing begins. There's a quiet moment somewhere between heartbreak and healing, when you stop asking, how do I get them back? And you start whispering, who am I now? That moment is subtle. It doesn't roar. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives like a breath, unexpected, steady, and strangely familiar. Because deep down, you've always known that the person you're becoming matters more than the person you lost. But it takes time for your heart to catch up to that truth. Losing someone isn't just about losing their presence. It's about losing the rhythm your life had when they were part of it. The small routines, the shared laughter, the energy between you that felt effortless. When they're gone, the silence hits harder than the goodbye. And for a while, all you can think about is what disappeared, what's missing, what's broken, what's unfinished. But here's the thing no one prepares you for. When someone leaves your story, you don't stay frozen. You don't remain the person you were when they walked away. Life keeps moving you forward even on the days you feel unmoving. Pain keeps sculpting you, even when you're trying to stop it. You're becoming someone new, quietly, slowly, unexpectedly. Most people don't realize that heartbreak is more than an emotional wound. It's an invitation, not one you wanted, not one you asked for, but an invitation to become someone deeper, stronger, more aware than you were before. There's this friend I know who went through the kind of breakup that leaves you hollow, the kind that makes you question everything, your choices, your worth, your future. For months, he felt like he was walking through fog, but instead of trying to rebuild what was lost, he did something different. He rebuilt himself. He picked up an old guitar he hadn't touched in years, joined a local volunteer group, started taking long walks at sunrise because he said it made him feel like the world was resetting with him. One day, after almost a year, he told me, I woke up and realized I don't miss her anymore. I miss the version of me who didn't know how strong he could be. And that hit me, because most of us spend so much time focusing on the person we lost, we forget to notice the transformation happening inside us. The healing forces you to grow, even when you're resisting the growth with every breath. You don't come out the same, you come out expanded. And that expansion isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's the simple realization that you no longer break when their name appears. Sometimes it's waking up without that familiar ache in your chest. Sometimes it's laughing, genuinely laughing, and realizing it's been weeks since you thought about them. That's growth. That's becoming. But here's what really matters. You're not becoming someone better out of spite or revenge or performance. You're becoming someone fuller, more aligned with your own soul, someone who is built from your own choices, not from the shadow of a past relationship. And that's powerful. We often define ourselves by who we lose. He left, so I must not be enough. She walked away, so I must be unlovable. They didn't choose me, so I must not matter. But those are stories the mind writes when the heart is still bruised. They aren't truths, they're reactions. The real truth, the grounded, quiet, undeniable truth, is that loss doesn't diminish you, it reveals you, it exposes the places that need strengthening, it highlights the parts of you that were neglected, it calls you back to a self that maybe you hadn't nurtured in a long time. And when you begin focusing on who you're becoming, something shifts. Your energy stops reaching backward. Your thoughts stop chasing ghosts. Your heart stops clinging to what can't return because you're finally facing forward. Think about someone who goes through a major storm, one that takes out power, knocks down trees, floods roads. After the storm, the landscape is different. Damaged, yes, but cleared in some ways too. Space is created. Light falls in new places, and rebuilding begins not because the storm is forgotten, but because the storm revealed where the foundations needed reinforcement. That's what heartbreak does. It shows you the places that deserve more care, more attention, more love from you. Maybe you lost someone who made you feel understood. Now you're learning to understand yourself. Maybe you lost someone who made you feel grounded. Now you're finding your own grounding. Maybe you lost someone who gave your life meaning. Now you're discovering new meaning. Your meaning. The beauty of becoming is that it never depends on another person. It lives in your choices, your effort, your courage to keep moving even when the road is dark. And somewhere along the journey you'll notice that the future starts calling louder than the past. You'll feel a pull, not backward, not toward them, but toward the person you're growing into. Someone wiser, someone kinder, someone who knows how to stay open, even after being hurt, someone who doesn't lose themselves again. And you'll realize something profound. The person you lost was part of your story, but not the definition of it. They shaped chapters, but not the entire book. The real story, the one that keeps unfolding, belongs to the person you're becoming. And that person, that emerging, resilient, evolving version of you, is worth focusing on, worth nurturing, worth fighting for, because in the end it's not about who walked away, it's about who you become in the space they left behind. And who you become, who you choose to become, is something no one can take from you. There's a moment, after everything falls apart, when your mind tries to convince you that staying connected, staying close in any way you can, is somehow the path to healing. You tell yourself it's harmless to check their social media, harmless to keep their numbers saved, harmless to scroll through old pictures, old messages, old pieces of a life that doesn't exist anymore. You convince yourself that staying close keeps you strong, keeps you grounded, keeps you from falling apart. But the truth is, the very thing you think is helping you hold on is the thing keeping you from moving forward. Creating distance isn't easy, it's not gentle, it's not romantic, it doesn't feel inspiring. It feels like taking a deep breath and stepping away from something that once felt like oxygen. It feels like choosing to walk out into the cold because you know the warmth you're clinging to doesn't belong to you anymore. It feels like losing the last place that made sense. But distance is the space where healing grows, even when you can't see it happening. People misunderstand distance. They think it's about punishing themselves or punishing the person who left. But distance is none of that. Distance is honor. Honor for your heart. Honor for your peace. Honor for your future. You create distance not because you want to forget them, but because you want to remember yourself, your needs, your worth, your direction. There was this guy I met once who kept going back to someone who never really stayed. He'd block her one day, text her the next. He'd delete their photos at midnight and restore them by sunrise. He kept telling himself, I just want closure. But closure isn't something someone gives you, it's something you make. And the first ingredient in closure is space. space where your heart can breathe without being yanked back into old patterns. When he finally stopped reaching out, stopped checking her page, stopped revisiting their almosts, he told me it felt like quitting a drug. The withdrawals were real, the ache was real. But for the first time, so was the healing. Distance doesn't feel good at first because it forces you to sit with the truth instead of the comfort. It makes you feel the rawness of the loss, the sharpness of reality, the edges of your own longing. And those feelings, they're intense. They take up space. They make you want to run back, even when you know running back doesn't lead anywhere new. But distance has a purpose. It creates separation between you and the pain that keeps repeating. It breaks the cycle. It resets the emotional wiring that's been looping in your mind like a song you can't stop humming. You can't heal a wound while picking at it every day. The same is true for your heart. Physical distance is the first step, staying away from the places that pull you back into memories, not showing up where you know your heart will feel too much, removing yourself from the routines that used to include them. It's not dramatic, it's necessary. It's giving your mind a chance to form new pathways instead of walking the same emotional road over and over. Sometimes all you need is a few weeks of not bumping into them, not hearing their voice, not feeling their presence in familiar spaces, and something inside you starts to shift, slowly, quietly, but unmistakably. Then there's emotional distance, which is even harder. It's choosing not to romanticize the past. It's refusing to replay the highlight reel while ignoring the parts that made the ending inevitable. Emotional distance doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying. And that's a big difference. It's allowing your heart to feel what it feels without reaching for comfort in places that broke you. It's letting your emotions pass through you instead of dragging you backward. Emotional distance asks for honesty, for courage, for restraint, and for patience. But the hardest one, the one that defines this era of human connection, is digital distance. It's the part people struggle with the most because the world has made it too easy to stay tethered to what hurts us. A profile picture, a green dot that shows they're online, a post that makes your stomach twist, a story that makes your heart race, a notification that makes your entire day unravel. Digital access keeps the wound open. It keeps your mind guessing. It keeps your imagination restless. It keeps your emotions volatile. And we underestimate the power of a single swipe, because every time you look, you're pulling yourself back into the gravity of something that no longer belongs to you. The human mind isn't built to heal with constant reminders flashing across a screen. Healing requires silence, silence from their updates, their pictures, their life moving forward without you in it. That silence isn't an empty space. It's sacred space. It's where your strength gathers. It's where your clarity returns. I once knew someone who couldn't bring themselves to unfollow the person they loved. Their reasoning was always something small. It's just one click. It doesn't mean anything. I don't want to be dramatic. But every time they saw a new post, it derailed their healing. Their whole day pivoted around a moment that didn't even involve them. When they finally muted, unfollowed, deleted, they described the feeling as terrifying at first. But 2 months later, they said something I'll never forget. I didn't realize how much of my peace I had been sacrificing just by watching their life. And that's what distance gives you. Peace. It's not glamorous. It's not poetic. It's not the stuff movies are made of. But it's real. It's the kind of peace that allows your mind to stop spinning. The kind that lets your heart stop anticipating. The kind that makes room for your own life to matter again. You create distance not because you're trying to be cold, but because you're trying to be whole. You step back not because you're giving up, but because you're growing up. You let go not because you stopped loving, but because you started loving yourself enough to choose a life that doesn't hurt every day. And in that distance, physical, emotional, digital, you rediscover something important. Yourself, your rhythm, your strength, your voice, your direction. And one morning after enough distance has softened the ache, you'll wake up and realize you're finally walking forward. Not because you forced it, but because you created the space where forward could finally happen. Time. It's one of those things we try so hard to outrun, outsmart, or overpower, especially when we're hurting. When someone leaves a mark on your heart, The first instinct is to fix everything right now, to find answers, to restore control, to stop the ache before it swallows you. You tell yourself you have to be strong, you have to push through, you have to outmuscle the pain. But the truth is, there are places inside you that strength can't reach. Not because you're weak, but because healing doesn't respond to force, it responds to time. In the middle of heartbreak, time feels like the enemy. It feels too slow, too quiet, too empty. You look at the clock and wonder how it's possible for minutes to feel like hours, and for memories to hit harder at midnight than they did at noon. You want to skip ahead to some future where the hurt is softer, the memories don't sting, and the past doesn't hold so much power. But time doesn't bend just because we're in pain. It asks for patience. It asks for surrender. It asks for trust. I once knew someone who tried to heal through sheer will. They filled every minute with distractions, work, workouts, travel, noise, anything to drown out the echo of what they'd lost. They wore their busyness like armor, and for a while it worked. They didn't cry, they didn't break, they didn't stop. But a few months later, everything they'd been outrunning caught up. One quiet night, they sat alone in their apartment and finally felt everything at once. The grief, the longing, the confusion, the exhaustion. And in that moment, they realized something painful but necessary. Strength had carried them, but it hadn't healed them. That's what time does. It steps in when your strength reaches its limit. It works in the spaces you can't see, softening the edges, calming the storms, helping you breathe again. Not all at once, but gradually, the way dawn replaces darkness without needing applause. Time makes room for your heart to adjust, your mind to accept, and your spirit to rebuild. Healing isn't a straight line. It's a rhythm. Forward, backward, stillness, breakthrough. Some days you'll feel like you're finally rising above it. Other days it will feel like the hurt is brand new. And that's not failure. That's human. The process isn't broken. It's working exactly the way it's supposed to. There's something gentle about the way time heals. It doesn't erase the past. It doesn't ask you to pretend it never mattered. Instead, it teaches you how to carry the memory without letting it crush you. It teaches you how to look back without getting pulled under. It teaches you that pain doesn't last forever, not because you're strong enough to defeat it, but because time transforms it. One day without fanfare, you'll notice the shift. You'll hear a song that once destroyed you, and you won't fall apart. You'll walk past a place that once felt haunted, and your chest won't tighten. You'll think of their name and feel something more like gratitude than grief. That moment won't come because you forced yourself to move on, but because time gently guided you to a different emotional landscape. Maybe the most beautiful part is this: time doesn't only help you let go, it helps you grow. It opens new doors, new connections, new parts of yourself you hadn't explored before. It gives you back the pieces that heartbreak scattered. It reminds you that endings aren't final. They're transitions into versions of yourself you haven't met yet. So let time do what strength alone cannot. Let it hold what you can't carry. Let it soften what you can't confront. Let it heal what you can't force into place. And trust that even when you feel stuck, time is still moving, and it's taking you with it toward a future where your heart feels lighter, your days feel clearer, and your story continues with a strength that didn't come from fighting, but from allowing yourself the grace to heal. Walking away from someone you can't forget isn't about erasing them. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself you lost along the way. It's about honoring what you felt while no longer letting it define you. One day you'll look back and realize you didn't break, you transformed, and that transformation is yours. That strength is yours. That new life you're walking toward, also yours. And when that day comes, you won't just be walking away, you'll be walking forward.